past several weeks, we've had a rash of shootings in this city. And we, the police department, is just as frustrated about these shootings as anyone else is. We're very upset that they have taken place, and we're doing everything that we can possibly do to work at finding the suspects or the perpetrators responsible for them and to prevent them from happening in the future. We've had 20 shootings to this date, dating back from July 1st to today's date. And of those 20, we've had about 11 of them that we've identified victims known to the suspects or the suspects known to the victims, either way you want to phrase it. We are working extra hard with these victims to try to identify who the suspects are that was responsible for these shootings, but in some cases you need to know that the victims are not that cooperative. We have some victims that fully cooperate with the police, and then we have others who would rather take out their frustrations themselves. And that's a real challenge for the police department when such things like that occur. Our officers nonetheless are working extra hard trying to pinpoint locations where these shootings are occurring to prevent them from occurring in the future, but that's a real challenge because you never know when someone's going to pull out a gun and use it against another individual. Moving forward, we've identified that of the 20 shootings, as I stated, 11 of them known victim and suspect. The remainders, we have reasons to believe that a couple of them were accidental self-inflicted wounds. And we actually did have a couple that were attempted robberies. All of the shootings, of course, are unfortunate. We would rather none of them occur, but the fact that they did occur puts us in a position of trying to get as much intelligence information from our witnesses and from our intelligence unit to help us solve these crime problems. In a few seconds, Major Zapel will come up and he will explain to you the essence of each of the 20 shootings, and we will answer any questions that you may have.
But this is the synopsis the chief just gave you. I want you to understand that we follow every one of these things very intently. We do analysis at so many different levels on these things, whether it's the street line officers or their supervisors, the sergeants, the precinct commanders, the majors, the chief, the assistant chief. It's all done at every level. We all make sure we back each other up and we don't miss anything. This is what we determined. We did this from July 1st through present day, and during that time period, for the first 8 days of July, there were no shootings at all. From that analysis, 11 of the 20 suspects and victims are familiar with each other. 3 of the 20 cases are confirmed or believed to be self-inflicted. One is a confirmed self-inflicted gunshot wound to the hand. We'll cover that in just a minute. 2 of them we believe they shot themselves. Now, you ask, why would they shoot themselves and not tell us they shot themselves? One of 2 reasons. One, they're embarrassed because they shot themselves. It's usually determined by where the gunshot wound is. It's usually somewhere in the groin area. It's because they had a gun in a waistband and they probably weren't familiar with the gun, pulled out and shot themselves. The second reason, main reason, is they're convicted felon. What better proof do we need that you shot yourself, or to put you back in prison, that you had a gun in your hand, that you shot yourself? So usually what the statement is at that point is somebody else shot me. It's usually very indicative when we look at these cases when they are shot through the pocket of the pants instead. There's no hole in the outside of the pants. That's usually a really good indicator. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. 6 of the 20 victims refused, not just didn't want to cooperate, refused to cooperate with the police department. They'll either handle it themselves or they just don't like the police department. There's one that happened at 800 East Gwinnett Street, we'll cover in just a minute, that the victim, laying on the ground, actually told the other witnesses in the area, don't say nothing to the police. It's in the police report. 3 of these shootings were arrested, and 3 of them are pending arrest right now. Starting out numbers, the first one here, 7th of July, 1200 block East 55th Street. This was the confirmed self-inflicted gunshot wound to the hand. Second one's 9th of July. Start looking at some of the infamous gunshot wound to the right ankle. There was suspects. The victim was cooperative. However, the victim had 2 bags of marijuana in his clothing at the hospital, and there was a gun left at the scene. Most people, when they shoot somebody else, don't leave their gun at the scene. So make your own inferences from that. 9 July, same day. Gunshot wound to the left buttocks and hamstring. Suspect relationship, they knew each other. The suspect's name was Benny. Black passenger car who the victim said was driven by his significant other, dropped him off and left. They didn't even stick around to talk to us. 10th of July, Live Oak 34th Street, gunshot wound upper right leg groin area. No known suspect-victim relationship. We were cooperative. Two black male suspects, dark clothing, nappy hair, 5'11", 6 foot tall. 13th of July, 900 block of Adele Street, gunshot wound to the right hand, unknown, cooperative, yes, no suspect information given. Victim was armed himself, arrested a week prior for possession of a stolen firearm. 200 block of West Henry Street, gunshot wound to the stomach, suspect relationship, we don't know at this point. The victim not only does not want to cooperate, refuses to cooperate. And we do believe that to be drug related from the evidence in the residence. Abbott and Chester Street, gunshot wound to the neck. Victim suspect relationship not known. Victim was not cooperative, didn't give us any suspect information, and instead of calling the police department or an ambulance, called his family member to pick him up and take him to the hospital. 17th of July, Ashland Northeast 36th Street, gunshot wound to the back. Suspect relationship was known. Victim was cooperative this time, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Name that identified the suspects. A month prior to this incident, the victim of this shooting was in Daffin Park and was involved in a confrontation with 3 suspects. He went home and told his father that he was involved in a confrontation. Well, instead of dad saying, don't go back to the park, he went back and said, well, you can fight my son one at a time. And one of those suspects pulled a gun and shot the father. So now this time it was the son that got shot. And had they identified him from the first shooting, because it was the same as in the second shooting, we might have done a little bit better with that one. 700 block West 39th Street, multiple gunshot wounds, known suspect-victim relationship, and it's an active investigation, so we're not going to put anything else up there on that. 1200 block of Seiler Avenue was a homicide. We believe it to be drug-related, and that's all I can say on that one at this time. 800 block East Gwinnett Street, this is the one I told you about earlier. This is where the victim told a witness not to cooperate with the investigation. Don't say anything to the police about who the suspect was. I'll take care of it myself. 2800 block Capitol Street, gunshot wound to the neck. Suspect was identified, suspect was arrested. 23rd of July, gunshot wound to the leg. No known suspect-victim relationship, was not cooperative with the police. 24th of July, 36th and Florence Street, gunshot wound to the right knee and left leg. Suspect relationship known, victim cooperative, yes, and the suspects were identified. That's pending arrest. 1500 block of East 55th Street, 2 victims. Suspect relationship is known, victim are cooperative, and it's an active investigation, so we can't put anything else at this point. 600 block West Gwinnett Street, gunshot wound to the left thigh. No known victim-suspect relationship. Victims were not cooperative, refused to answer any questions about the incident, how it happened, who shot them, or where they were when it happened. 30th of July, 100 Hampstead Avenue is a homicide. That's an open investigation right now. 1st of August, 500 block of East 34th Street, gunshot wound to the left groin area, known suspect-victim relationship, and yes, they are cooperative. And 1900 block of Waters Avenue, gunshot wound to the neck and arm, and the victim was cooperative. He identified the suspects, arrest pending in that case. And the last one is 3rd of August, 5200 block of Cordell Street, gunshot wound to the leg. This is a victim-suspect relationship is known. They're actually roommates. A beef from a week ago. One got a gun and shot the other one.
That we do not believe or feel that the public in general is at risk. A lot of these shootings, as you just heard, are from individuals who know one another, who choose to retaliate in their fashion as opposed to reporting to the police. They're very non-cooperative in many cases when the police respond to calls for services involving shootings or any other type of a crime, where they don't want to necessarily allow the police to do what the police does. They want to take action on their own. And here's an example of that. And so we are challenged to try to help find these and identify these suspects when we can't get victims to cooperate with us. And so what you see is exactly what we've been dealing with over the last month, essentially. And at this point, if you have questions, we'll be glad to answer.
Well, at the same point, even if they're not known to each other, or some are known to each other, that still worries the public out there. They're still worried about this many gunshots in this short time. Any idea why they seem to be coming in this mass quantity like they have?
And actually, this year is a little different. In previous years, we've had the same number of shootings, but they were spread out more. This time, for whatever reason, they are coming at us back to back. We can't answer that question as to why it's happening like that. We can't predict when someone's going to shoot another person. We would hope that it never happened, but they do happen, and we simply respond when they do.
Is there any thought of increasing patrols in any specific area? I know it's sort of spread out.
It is spread out, and we have put extra patrol on the streets to address this. But again, it's very difficult when you don't know when it's going to happen. And in many of the cases, they were happening in the early morning hours, 2, 3 o'clock in the mornings, and I'm sure you all are aware of that when you respond to these calls. So, you know, we don't really know when it's going to happen. Some occurred in the daytime, and most of them occurred late at night, 2, 3 in the morning, when you would expect people to be at home and in bed.
Do we expect any, or is there anticipated to be any sort of connection between them, retaliation, or is the connection?
No.
No, we have not been able to tie any such thing together. No connections thus far from the investigators that's handling the cases that would tie them as, say, they are associated with any type of a gang or anything like that. No, these individuals, to our knowledge right now, are acting independently.
If there are retaliations, it makes it much easier for us, because then we can target the individuals involved. These are individual incidents. They're not retaliations or patterns of shootings. They're just people that have a culture where they get aggravated at each other, they go get a gun, or already have a gun.
Exactly.
And that's such a complicated issue to address. I know you guys are working with Operation Ceasefire. Where does that stand at this point?
Well, we are in the beginning stages with Operation Ceasefire. We are gathering all the research that we need to implement Operation Ceasefire here in Savannah, but it's going to be a minute before we can put it in operation. However, we do have other units that we're utilizing to assist us, and our partner agencies also assist us, the FBI, the ATF, etc., in working these types of cases to help bring this under control.
Are you having any luck on any of these with people calling into Crime Stoppers and reporting anonymously?
Unfortunately, not at this time. We have not had any reports come into Crime Stoppers. However, our investigators are making some inroads as to identifying some of them. In the 2 homicides, for an example, 1 arrest was made in one of the homicides, and we think we're pretty close to arresting someone in the second.
You talk about this many shootings happening, spread out. You're talking about over a summer or over the entire year?
Over a summer and over the year, in both. Historically, we've had shootings to occur in a short span of control, and we've had them to occur over an extended span of control. Over the last several years, it's been extended. This year, it's been within that short perimeter.
Is there a worry then that this is going to continue if it's in this big block now, and are you worried about what's going to happen in the next, say, month?
Well, of course we are, and we will continue to have those extra units out there patrolling in hopes of deterring it from occurring. Fortunately, over the past day or so, we've not had a shooting, and so we're hoping for this continued rate to continue.
Shootings are not something you can predict. It's very difficult. So, you know, we're doing everything we can to address this, and they happen everywhere. So,
For Major or Chief, though, are you surprised at maybe the number of guns that are out there, that this many shootings would happen in such a small period of time?
I'm not surprised, no, about this many guns being out on the streets. We seize weapons all the time. Even just in basic traffic stops, the officers will seize a weapon out of a car. So we seize them a lot, and so we're not surprised when we see them out on the streets a lot. With the recent new change in the gun law, we anticipated that people would go out and buy guns to protect themselves, not necessarily because they want to use them, but because they want to have them in the event that they are approached.
So you think the new gun law might be part of the reason why these
I don't
shootings are
think,
happening?
no, I don't, in this case, I don't think so, no. I really don't. I think these are individuals who may have just had weapons themselves anyway, and is using them to retaliate.
most of these legally bought or stolen guns, or?
We would have no idea unless we seize the weapon and run the weapon.
I know that many of these are people who are involved in drug life, people who are involved in violence already. But there are some, a minority of these, that are robberies.
Yes.
That seems to be particularly concerning. I know in the area of 35th and Waters, the people around there were very worried about what happened to DJ Victor Shawn. And also the people in the area of Hall and Whitaker are very concerned about the ones that are robberies. What do you have to say to that?
Well, of course, we would definitely want no one to be robbed, and especially not at gunpoint. It's a very violent offense. We have put, again, extra units out in those areas because those are targeted areas in the central precinct. The commanders that work those areas are fully aware that extra units need to be deployed in those areas because people spend a lot of time just sort of socializing and hanging out in those areas. We've seen an uptick to some degree of shootings in that central precinct area. And so our focus is, of course, to kind of keep an eye on it and protect the individuals in that vicinity as much as possible. As you noticed, we did have a couple of robberies, that legitimate cases that we believe are robberies, full-blown robberies. But for the most part, we've not had that.
I think it's very important to point out also, when you're talking about the last case up there that happened on the 3rd of August, is the victim, and probably anybody in that neighborhood who you were just talking about, would tell us who that person was that shot that guy. The victim told us who it was, and we're going to make an arrest in that case. That's very important when you get people who will not cooperate and tell us who shot them, or nobody in the area saw what happened, and we know they saw what happened. We need that information.
Chief, obviously this is obviously going to be very not encouraging, but people are going to like to see this information. It's been almost a month. You held a news conference with the city. Why now? Why take a month to kind of get this information or that kind of synopsis out? Because there's a lot of people that are nervous out in the community. Why take almost a month to get this out?
Because, of course, we were still gathering intelligence information ourselves, and we needed to make sure of the information that we were gathering, that, yes, when you ask the questions about whether or not they're gang-related or there's an association between, we have to tie those cases together to determine whether they exist or not. And we knew from the very beginning moving forward that this was not a situation where the general public was actually at risk. These were individuals going after each other. So for the detectives that were working the cases, we needed to give them the space to gather as much information and intelligence that they needed to give us feedback on what we were really dealing with.